Hello ladies and gentlemen, Nick here and welcome to RTD month. Before we begin, the Whoniversals recently hit 500 subscribers, so thank you to every single one of you who have subscribed and have watched our videos. Whether you've been a subscriber since the beginning, well, the beginning of this era, since July 2016, or if you're a recent subscriber, thank you for subscribing and checking out our videos whenever they come up. And I hope you're enjoying RTD month so far. So, down to business. This video is about the top 5 Russell T Davies era planets that were introduced during the Russell T Davies era. So this is basically just me talking about some of the planets that were introduced in the Russell T Davies era, more or less, and we'll be doing a rank of them. And having a little bit of research, I can confirm that there were 13 brand new planets introduced in the Russell T Davies era of Doctor Who that were shown on screen. We're not going to be talking about ones that were mentioned like Jehu, Clom, Raxvalipatoris, got it right. Woman's Wept, The Lost Moon of Poosh, Pyrovilia, Adipose 3, they were all mentioned, but they weren't seen on screen. And also, before starting, we're not going to have any planets previously established in Doctor Who. So no Earth, that was introduced in An Unearthly Child. We're not going to have Mars. We're not going to have Gallifrey, and we're not going to have the moon. I say the moon may be it's not a planet, but it could get counted, as could the Lost Moon of Poosh. Actually, come to think of it, the Ood-Sphere is apparently listed as a moon as well. Oh well. But anyway, on to the list, and I will do honourable mentions before we get to number 1. So let's start with number 5. Now, out of the 13 planets introduced in the Russell T Davies era, 4 of which were introduced in... Well, actually, there was a 14th, but that one's not been listed, coming from the animated story Dreamland. It was shown on screen, but I don't think it's been named, so there's a early honourable mention for you. But out of the 13 ones we do know about, 4 of which were from the animated special The Infinite Quest, and that's where number 5 comes, my personal favourite of the 4, or at least the one I consider the best. Number 5 is Volag-Noc. Volag-Noc is an interesting one, as it's a prison planet within the planet itself, and the surface is kind of an icy, snowy planet, which is a nice contrast to previous planets we've seen in the specials, where they've been a bit more warm, with the planets. I check their names. Pheros, that's Pheros, and Bokon, Boukon, being more warm planets, and Myarr, Myarr, being a little bit tropical. So this one's a little bit different, as it's a cold, snowy planet on the surface, and the prison below the surface is probably not that much warmer, to be honest. Maybe warm enough, but it's certainly quite cold. I think the inside of the planet's got a pretty interesting design. We're talking about inside and outside of the planet's surface and below the surface. I think, yeah, Volag-Noc's got a pretty interesting design. It seems to be the biggest prison planet that we've seen in Doctor Who, although we have seen other prison planets, such as, not Myra, it's another planet from the Darkest Master Plan, but that one's just where criminals are dropped onto the surface with no escape. Here it's the entire planet on the inside, and it's got a pretty neat design, and again, the surface is quite a nice contrast to the other planets seen in this special. It's also worth noting that Volag-Noc gets a mention in Night of the Humans, the novel that came out in 2010. Pretty interesting. Nowadays, the show tends to reference the Storm Cage facility that River Song was placed in, with a reference to it in Rosa with Krasko. Similarly, I think Shard is going to be referenced if the prison the Doctor was placed in at the end of the Timeless Children was Sharda. Please be Sharda. But yeah, Volag-Noc is quite an interesting place. You just don't want to be there for a long time, unless you're the governor. Also, Thomas likes his prison set stories, so he'll probably be glad to see this planet mentioned on this list. Okay, moving on to the actual series now, with number 4, another snowy and icy one, another cold one. This time around, however, you're going to have some friendly faces. Well, alien faces, providing that their eyes don't go red. So, being introduced in Planet of the Ood, it is, of course, the Ood-Sphere. The Ood-Sphere is technically a moon, but it's also the home planet of the Ood, where they are They were discovered by humans and then turned into slaves. Ouch. Planet of the Ood is a anti-slavery story, by the way. And Doctor Who was never political before 2017. Woo! I'll let you in on a secret. It was. But the Utopia is pretty nice. It's got some nice bits on the surface of the planet, rock formations and stuff. I'm not entirely sure what it's called, but looks pretty neat in Planet Eve, and even nicer in the end of time when we go back, and it's an entire civilization has been built within a century. And I think, yeah, it's an interesting place, and it gets well utilized in the stories it appears in, especially in Planet of the Ood. And and adds quite a lot of lore for the Ood. The Ood had already gotten a good story in The Impossible Planet and the Satan Pit, a story we're going to be coming back to with another planet in a little bit. But Planet of the Ood adds a lot more lore to the story, and I think with the planet itself, it is able to showcase said backstory with the Oods. The Ood-Sphere, great planets. Also, fun fact, it's in the same system as the Sense-Sphere from the Sensorites, though the booklet in the DVD release of that story was quite cynical towards the reference in this story. Usually the DVD booklets are very upbeat and positive about the stories they're talking about, even the ones that are widely considered some of the worst stories in the show. Anyway, staying on the topic of the Ood, but continuing on to number 3, we have Krop-Tor from the Impossible Planet and the Satan Pit. Another interesting planet, this time a planet very close to a black hole in the furthest reaches of the galaxy. Now, there isn't really anything on the planet, on the surface anyway, that visually looks interesting, but the fact it's near a black hole and on the gravity belt is pretty interesting. Furthermore, 10 miles down into the cavern, and you get some really pretty inside the planet stuff. Pretty interesting. And then the pit below again is pretty interesting, although not visually stunning. It's pretty interesting. So that cavern bit and 10 miles below the surface, that's probably what pushes this planet here. The concept is still really great, and the idea of the beast being placed on an impossible planet near a black hole, if he tries to escape, the planet goes into the black hole, is a absolutely genius idea. I also think it works really well with the sanctuary base colony on the base, being how that works in with how the planet and the base working with the story in the beast's plan. It all works really well with the whole feel of everything. What am I saying? I just wanted to put this planet here. But it's mainly that cavern that pushes this planet to this specific spot, though it is the whole concept of the planet that puts it onto the list. Moving on to one of the most visually stunning planets we've ever seen in the show, number 2, going back to Series 4. And before I say so, Series 3 doesn't really have many planets to visit, and none of them appear on this list, unless you count the Infinite Quest. And Series 1 didn't have any full stop. Series 4, on the other hand, gave us quite a good small number of few to appear, and also a few more mentioned. In fact, quite a few planets even appeared on screen. Maybe I should take that comment back about some of the planets that were mentioned not actually appearing on screen, in case they actually appeared in those shots with the planets in the sky. Let's stick to ones that have actually been visited in the show. Anyway, carrying on with the list. My number 2 choice, one of the most spectacular looking planets in the show, is of course from the Series 4 story, Midnighf. So the planet is of course Midnighf. So Midnighf is pretty stunning. It's a beautiful diamond-like jewel planet that can hold this luxury resort and looks absolutely beautiful whenever we see it on screen. Furthermore, it's within an extonic sun, so if you go onto the surface, then you'll get basically you vaporize, so to speak. So they need the very strong glass that should be able to protect everyone, and the metal inside the cabin. But it's interesting that we've got a extonic planet which causes the beauty of the diamond crystal likes on the planet and the sapphire waterfall, which we sadly never got to see. What's even more interesting is that some sort of life, a bodiless entity, somehow does survive. Well, I say bodiless, it does have some sort of physical ability to knock on doors, but also psychic to take over human minds. We'll never know what this thing is, but it was a pretty interesting concept for a villain, and Midnighf is a really interesting and beautiful planet. But number one is a planet that I think is, well, maybe not as visually striking, but probably gets the best use in a Russell T Davies era story. Number one is, of course, the library from Silence in the Library and Forest of the Dead. But Nick, how can a planet-sized library be more visually stunning than Midnighf, or more interesting than a black hole, a planet near a black hole, or the Ood-Sphere? Well, basically, it's a giant fucking library. It's huge. I know my sister would probably consider this the best planet ever. Um, God, she's a book person. The library is a vast library. It's also got the central computer system for Cow and those being saved. So the computer system plays an important part within the story, but the planet itself is a visually striking planet. Maybe not as much as Midnighf, but it's still really cool. It's like a whole citywide planet, but a library. Pretty interesting. And it's also probably the most used planet in any of the stories of the RTD era, I believe. This or Midnighf. But I think the fact that everyone all the characters go through the many sections of the planet works really well. It's probably not a very big planet, but it's definitely a planet in its own right. It's also worth noting this is the home planet of the Vashta following their forests being turned into books and placed all around the forest. But yeah, it's a really interesting place and some really great stuff throughout the planet, and you can definitely get immersed in this world throughout the 2 episodes it appears in, especially in the first episode, because the second does have a lot of the inside the computer world stuff. But yeah, definitely a really great planet, and definitely worth checking out. If the planet actually existed, it would definitely be a destination to visit. So that's my list, and I just realised I talked about number one before doing the honourable mentions. So I'll quickly talk about the honourable mentions before wrapping up. So the honourable mentions include, well, I did say Earth wasn't going to be counted. However, I am including New Earth and Parallel Earth. Well, the one from Rise of the Cybermen, anyway. So New Earth, first seen in New Earth, and the Rise of the Cybermen parallel world, first appearing in Rise of the Cybermen and the Age of Steel, are 2 of the honourable mentions, alongside Malcassiro, I believe I'm saying that right, from Utopia, Messaline from The Doctor's Daughter, San Helios from Planet of the Dead, and the 3 other Infinite Quest ones, Pheros, Bukon, and Maya. Plus also that one from Dreamland, but that one didn't get named. And of course the planets from in the sky above Earth, the planets in the sky. Some of the ones that were mentioned in the story could have been there, but I'm not certain. Also, the Crucible does not count as a planet. That is a giant planet-sized space station. So that's about it from me. Thank you for watching this video. Comment down below your top 5 Russell T Davies era planets. It has to be ones that were introduced in the Russell T Davies era. I will allow you to say the ones that were mentioned, providing that they were one of the ones that appeared in the Stolen Earth Journey's End. So like Jehu, Clom, Woman's Wept, Lost Boon of Poosh, Pyrovilia, Adipose 3, those could count. But Raxiphallopatorius probably would not. And similarly, you can't say Earth, normal Earth, Mars, the Moon, or Gallifrey. And it has to be ones that appears in a TV story. So you can't have ones from a short story, a comic strip, an audio, a book, etc. unless they appear in the TV series. Like Woman Wept, for example, was in a short story. So if that one was one of the ones that appears in the Stolen Earth Journey's End, then that could count. But anyways, TV stories only, and keep it to ones that have definitely appeared on screen, or might have been one of the 26 other planets besides Earth in the Stolen Earth and Journey's End. That's it from me. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Enjoy the rest of RTD month. Goodbye.